Rupert Murdoch's son, James Murdoch, has resigned as the head of News International, the British newspaper publisher embroiled in the phone hacking scandal.
A company statement says James Murdoch will take up a new position at the parent company News Corporation's headquarters in New York and focus on the company's international TV business. For more, the ABC's business editor Peter Ryan joins us now from Sydney. Peter, good morning. How else did the company explain this resignation?
Well, I think that the company itself hasn't really said that much about the overall issue, obviously, but it's there for all to see that James Murdoch, whether he knew what was going on at the News of the World or not, was in the job at the time at the helm, and this goes right to the heart of his position as someone who's running a company and his responsibility in running a major media company like News Corporation. They are saying that he is, the Deputy Chief Operating Officer of News Corporation, will be moving back to New York, but the reality is that his hands are away from the levers of major decisions in Murdoch's newspaper empire at the least.
And it could be seen as something of a preemptive strike, Peter, because James Murdoch is expected to come under heavy fire when that parliamentary inquiry that's been looking into phone hacking releases its report in coming months.
I think that it's another chapter, Michael, in the damage control that is continuing right throughout this whole saga. And to take James Murdoch out of the frame is very important for News Corporation to do that, to get him away from the hands-on role at this point anyway. Whether or not he stages a comeback is another question, but the issue as to whether or not he is the successor to Rupert Murdoch when Rupert Murdoch finally goes to that big newsroom in the sky, it doesn't appear that James is going to be the person who will be moving into that spot.
Don't you know Rupert Murdoch's going to live forever, Peter? He's 80 and going strong. But you make the very good point there that not so long ago, James Murdoch was firmly in the frame as the heir apparent. It could be some time now before he gets back into that position, and it could this move could also raise the prospects by default of people like Lachlan Murdoch, rather.
Yes, well, it was quite telling, Michael, well before today, back in August of last year, when News Corporation was holding one of its briefings, teleconferences on quarterly results. We actually got a question through to Rupert Murdoch to ask him when he was considering stepping down. And he said he had no intentions whatsoever of going anywhere. But as a follow-up on succession, he did make the point for the first time that if he was unlucky enough to fall under a bus, his successor would be Chase Carey, News Corporation's President and Chief Operating Officer. And that was a very strong signal from Rupert Murdoch himself that he did not necessarily see, at least at this point, a Murdoch stepping into his shoes when he moves on. Now, the question on Lachlan, it's been reported that Lachlan has been offered a number of opportunities to come back directly into the fold, but Lachlan Murdoch has a number of interests here in Australia, such as being a chairman of the 10 network and his other business interests. Elizabeth Murdoch doesn't appear to be in the frame for succession, so it does seem that it may well be an outsider to the family like Chase Carey, and shareholders appear to like that.
Now, for something completely different, Peter Ryan, I've been having a great deal of trouble here this morning engendering a lot of sympathy from my, how should I say, youthful colleagues here on ABC News Breakfast for the shock death, the tragic death of Davy Jones overnight. But finally, I have a kindred spirit in you.
Yes, well, look, as a child of the 60s, I won't say what year, but in the early 60s, growing up in Newcastle, in north of Sydney, there wasn't too much going on afternoons after school, but the highlight was coming home to see the Monkees, the TV series. And I do have very clear memories of when the Monkees visited Australia, visited Sydney in 1968. There was live coverage on at least one of our commercial competitors, but I was glued to the screen along with my sisters, watching the Monkees arrive and wishing we were in Sydney. But it has to be said, it's a very sad day. Davy Jones, a great performer. The Monkees were known as the Prefab Four, not nowhere near anything as big as the Beatles, but do have a lot of songs that really, are still played today whenever you turn on the radio.
Oh, they'll be played a lot today, I bet. Peter Ryan, thank you very much. See, they were big. They were very big in the 1960s.
Oh yes, they're still big.
Yeah, they're enduring.
Absolutely.